Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, the show that gives you a virtual seat at the bar for the real conversations that happen between entrepreneurs. I'm interviewing all kinds of business owners, from those just a few years into freelancing to CEOs helming 9-figure companies. If you've ever worried that everyone else just seems to get it and you're missing something or messing things up, this show is for you. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my new friend, Jana Bartlett Alonso. Say hi.
Hi.
Now, we almost got into a fight before we started recording because we discovered that Jana is a Mac girl, an Apple girl, and I am a PC and an Android girl. And she was like, oh, I can't do this interview now.
I'm just bringing a little bit of Spanish drama. So you know what's coming, right? You know what's coming. I preempted it.
Oh, gosh. Is this the telenovela issue or episode of Permission to Kick Ass?
No, it will be. And it's so funny that you just use that as a reference because my clients say this. They say, doing programs with Jana is like watching spiritual telenovelas or spiritual Netflix because but in my defense, okay, I've got defensive. In my defense, right? Are you going to remember a teaching if I tell you it, all vanilla, all chill, or are you going to remember it if I embellish it, if I add a plot line, if I make it larger than life, if I really sink that in? You're going to go, now I remembered that, right? And so it works.
Yes, it does. Well, and I mean, that's really the whole point of this show too, getting better and learning through each other's stories. So speaking of stories, tell us a little bit about what you do, what your business is. I want to hear it all.
Okay, amazing. It's a big question when people ask that. I'm like, how much of the story do I give? I do a lot of things. I'm going to give you a synopsis. I got into personal development 12 years ago. So I'm 31. You get to that age and you're like, how old am I? And I had to pause for a second, nearly 32. And I began kind of this personal development journey when I was 19. And as you can probably predict, it's because things in life weren't going as swimmingly as they could. I'd been diagnosed with an array of mental health conditions, depression, an eating disorder, social anxiety. And in the same 3 weeks, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And I had, let's call it an existential crisis, right? Really, this existential crisis and realization of, wait a minute, I've done everything that I was told to do, but I'm a good girl. Do you know what I mean? I got a boyfriend, had sex for the first time. I've got a group of friends. I, get good grades. I couldn't do better in I'm English, as you can tell as well from the British accent. So in my final exams, I had these phenomena, and I felt like I jumped through all of these hoops of what I should do to have like this beautiful life, right? And I wasn't happy, right? I wasn't happy. I was very depressed, hence the diagnosis. They also kindly diagnosed me with severe depression, not just depression. Thank you very much.
Overachiever.
Yeah, overachiever. Thank you. You saw me. Can't just be depressed. I've got to be severely depressed. Yeah.
It's dark Angie humor, sorry.
No, it's brilliant. I loved it. And you've nailed the personality type, right? Very short frame time. You nailed it. And in that same 3 weeks when my mum was diagnosed with cancer and I had all of these diagnoses, it was kind of like the family cracked open and I started being told the secrets that I'd never been told. Mum's been depressed since she was 19, right? We come from this family. I come from a family of refugees, from the civil war in Spain. And, all of these things that I hadn't been told because they were protecting me came out and I was hit with all of this information. And I had this really big realization. I was studying psychology as an undergrad and I was looking at my mum and I was like, okay, she's done everything that you're meant to do, but for 50 years, right? And it hasn't worked. She's still not happy. She's still on medication and now she's sick. Now she's got cancer. And there was something in my mind at 19. And now I tell the story and it blows my mind that goes, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. This is not what I choose. And, I finished my psychology degree with 3 awards of excellence. I was the top performing undergrad in my psychology degree of that year. I couldn't have done better. There was no space to do better. And I was like, well, if this is the best that they've got and I'm the best in this year, and I still think that this is rubbish, right? Then I'm not going to go down this line. And so I would have been offered master's scholarships, doctorate. I could have gone that route. It was available to me, but I made a very sideways choice. And I was like, okay, I'm going to find out what it means to heal. This is over a decade ago. So no one was talking about healing. Everyone thought I was insane. No one was talking about it. And I was like, I'm going to find out what it means. And I remember calling my dad and saying, Dad, when I find out, I'm going to bring this to the world. And I didn't realize the weight of those words. I didn't realize where it would take me now, right? I just knew that I was picking another path. And I'm going to kind of sum up the last 10 years as, succinctly as I can. But, I did all of the modalities that everyone does, nutrition, yoga, and then my mum was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I went, okay, so even the surface level alternative ain't a big enough band-aid for what's going on in my family. I became a full-time carer when I was 23. My mother died when I was 26. And it was the greatest and most beautiful awakening of my life, because sometimes we awaken through shock and pain. There's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes we don't. It doesn't matter. Okay. No judgment, no good, no bad, no wrong. And I really was faced with this situation of, Hannah, if you really want to learn how to heal, you need to go further, deeper, wider than most people do, because they're not put in the desperate position that you've been put in. Most people in their early 20s are out drinking. I was in hospices, do my drinking. I grew up in England, but, I quit alcohol by the time I was 22, and I did my traveling years and all of these things, but I was very, very focused on the healing work. And I discovered, we're multidimensional beings, right? We're physical, we're emotional, mental. We have got a soul, right? And this isn't just me saying this. I'm working with people that are proving it, that are doing the research behind it. Put a pin in there. I'll tell you about that because that's really epic. And we're energetic. And I realized, just because, the trauma happened to my grandparents doesn't mean that that's in my DNA, right? Just because, I haven't directly experienced this doesn't mean that the stress and the anxiety and the fear has down the genetic line. And so when I started doing this work, not only did I get happier, healthier, have more well-being, I realized the same stuff that had unlocked that for me unlocked relationships. I've experienced, I'm going to put a trigger warning here. You can decide whether you keep this. I've experienced sexual abuse as a child and as a teen. Romantic relationships for me were very challenging. They are not anymore. Same work, when I was doing the trauma healing. And then I applied it to business after my mom died. And it was this thing of, okay, this has worked in every other area of my life. I'm committed to bringing the healing work to the world. What happens if I apply this to business? I was hitting 250,000 launches in my first year and 3 months. That's not normal. That is not normal. We hit 7 figures at 2.5 years, and, having, 100K weeks, all of these things. And it's not about the financial milestones, even though it is, because I love the money and I love the fact that I get to have this level of freedom as well. But it was the way that we did it. We didn't do it in the way that's being taught. We did it in this really integral, embodied healing journey way. And I continue to do that. And so I really preach the inner work as a standard for all of us, so that we can have the lives that we want to live, whether it's in our relationships, our bank accounts, our purpose, our, impact. For me, it's all really the same. It's all part of the spiritual journey. And it's what I've come here to do. That was a long way of telling you who I am and my story, but I think you got the highlights.
I love that too. And we talked a little bit about it before we hit record, but like the prevalence of neurodivergence and like mental health crises and entrepreneurship, and how many of us are drawn to entrepreneurship because we just don't function like a neurotypical person. I feel like there has been a theme among all of my episodes recently that deals with that. And I think that's also why self-development, self-improvement becomes such a big part of building a successful business. I've made that joke so many times, but it's the reason it's so funny is it's true. Almost 80% of what you do in business is just working on yourself, because every challenge you come into, like, it's a direct confrontation with some story, some trauma, some experience that left a scar on you that you haven't dealt with yet. And like, you have the big launch and then suddenly there's a meltdown and you're like, why am I not happy? Like, this happens all the time in business. And that ties back so perfectly to what you said. Like, I wrote it down. My family cracked open and the secrets started pouring out. Like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I hoped to do with this show, to just kind of like crack that shell and have the secrets start sharing. And you wrote something beautiful before the show that I actually wrote down because I wanted to quote, like when your mom got that diagnosis and you got your diagnosis, she had to learn how to die and you had to learn how to live. And I was just like, oh, we're saying that out loud because that's something that people need to hear.
It's oh god, you just said so much. Firstly about the neurodivergence, and then we'll speak about the mum piece. I'm officially unemployable, and I think there's great freedom in that. More people are designing a life on their terms, that where they get to express who they are. And we realize that neurodivergence isn't really neurodivergence; it's just your gifts, right? I'm severely overachiever again, dyslexic, right? I'm also bilingual, and I do a lot of things that I was not meant to be able to do, but I can do. And it was very interesting. My father, when I was diagnosed with dyslexia, this was back in, it doesn't sound that long ago, but it was, when I was diagnosed with dyslexia, some of my abilities on the normal distribution, I was put as mild mental retardation. You're not allowed to say that to people now. You did then. But my father and my mother were amazing. They were like, Hannah, don't listen. They're like, that just means you're a genius. And so then what they would do is they'd send me all of these articles of these celebrities and business owners that had severe dyslexia, right? And how it was actually their genius. And so I've always believed everything that makes me different is my gift. And we just are in a society that don't know how to see that yet. Right. So my hyperfixation, you probably understand hyperfixation.
Oh, yeah.
Why I have a business. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of these things, we really get to choose how we experience it. But let's go back to that sentence about, I wrote a chapter in a book many years ago about this, but my mother had to learn how to die and I had to learn how to live. So poignant because our society sees death as a failure. And that's not true, right? Right. So my mother died peacefully and beautifully, albeit in hospital. And it's the single most transformational moment in my life to witness my mother die with grace. And there was something imprinted in me, right? People are very afraid to talk about their mortality, but that opened possibility. Oh my God, I get to die in peace. I get to die in grace, right? And simultaneously, the living piece was at 23. I went, oh wow, I'm not going to live forever. So get intentional, Hannah. And that's what I mean about hospices versus being out, getting drunk. I was sat at home and I had a bit of an existential crisis. Let's be honest, but it served its function and purpose because it got me thinking really, and this is the business thing, when I'm, let's put the energetics for this, when I'm at least 97, closing my eyes to peacefully depart to other realms, I realized I want to look back on my life and go, oh my God, I did that. I did that. And sure, I was scared at times and sure there were challenges, but I've got a friend, Sarah Blacker, and she says this. She says, I feel that, when I pass, I want me and my friends to be holding hands and we just take this bow. We've just done this amazing show, What an incredible way to live.
I love that.
Not just surviving, it's almost like this great performance that we get to put on planet Earth. And so that's what I mean about learning how to live. It really shifted how I perceived all of life. And it was massive, massive gift.
Mm-hmm. That brought up a couple things for me. Like, first of all, you talked about death as a failure. My brain immediately populated. I think in movies and I think in movie lines, that's part of my particular neurodivergence. So my brain went to Ever After when the king and his son are arguing about what the son needs to do to be king. And he's like, I will deny you the crown and live forever. That's what popped up for me because I was just thinking, oh, death is a failure. So somehow we think if we can just conquer it and live forever, then that's going but I think death is simply the end result of life. And what I would hope for is that it's a life well lived, exactly like you said, that the end result is we go to whatever comes next, knowing we did everything that we could. And then that brings up the other point that I wrote down, which it's like, this seems interesting to me, the dichotomy of I've got all the time in the world and I'm running out of time. because I see that happening a lot in entrepreneurship too. I'm so behind. I'm so behind. Look at what this person is doing. Look at what that person is doing. And also, I've got so much time left to achieve this. I'm going to move slowly as if the clock isn't running out. I don't know where I really wanted to go with that, but it came up. So
this is so good. Okay, I love this. I love this. I love this. I have so much to say on this. So it is holding the duality, and being an entrepreneur, or being just a human being alive on planet Earth, basically, means learning to be able to hold duality. So when I mean about, focus on I am mortal, for me, that doesn't create stress and it doesn't create pressure. It creates intentionality. So this is very different, because we can feel that we have so much time. And this is something that I teach to my clients and I practice myself, right? Because I do a lot of things. I'm on TV. I've got investments in Dubai, in real estate. I write curriculums. I've got, so many businesses. And so I don't want to live a stressed life. I want to do a lot of things, but I want to live a relaxed life. And you can have both, right? And so it's all about our state of being as we live. And so intentionality, this is a really good example of it. And I'm going to bring this together. When my mom passed away, I'd had this really crappy pattern with men, right? Just choosing like very inappropriate choices in partners, choosing partners that were abusive, or just choosing partners that never made sense for me, or I didn't even like that much, just bizarre choices, really. And obviously it was stemming from my belief systems and my trauma and things from my family lineage. And so when my mom passed away, I got intentional, right? The time is now, Hannah. You don't want to have another crappy relationship, do you? You want to have another nourishing relationship. But actually, I accidentally did have another crappy relationship, because sometimes the process is messy, okay? And that's fine, because the process is messy, because it is. Nothing wrong with you. So but I made a choice, and it was, I want to have kids. This was the choice. And I'm still in process of the creation. I want to have kids. I want to have a job that gives me freedom to be able to mother in the way that I want to mother. My memory of my mum was just being asleep on the couch after work every day because she was so exhausted. So I was choosing not that, right? I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have a partner that's like me, a bit off the wall, a bit weird, a bit of an adventurer, right? Someone that you're like, we're a team. And like, me and my partner have moved house 5 times in the 4 years that we've been together. And because we think it's fun, we don't find it stressful, right? And so I wanted that, and I was very clear on that. And so the intentionality is, okay, then it would not make sense for me to go out tonight, get drunk, and just sleep with someone, right? That's not in alignment with what I want. So the intentionality is acting in the present moment, right? In congruence to what you want. That's what intentionality is. Okay. So it's congruence, it's choice, it's decision. It's not pressure and stress, because I didn't then go, well, I've got to meet him tomorrow. I didn't care when. I just knew that that's what I wanted. I knew that I had faith and trust that it would come, and certainty, no matter the evidence, right? And I knew that I was willing to do the work around my own patterns. So that's what I did. I just got to work. And I, met a man prior to my partner that was willing to be committed, but he was, perpetuating some of my trauma patterns. And I ended things, and then I sat down, and instead of having a pity party, I had a pity party for as long as I needed to, a couple of days, right? Cried, boohoo, poor me, that was mean, you're mean. And then I got pulled my knickers up, pulled my socks up, whatever you want to say, right? And, said, okay, well, how am I matched to this? Oh, Han, you're very submissive. Most people wouldn't tolerate this. That was helpful me. So sometimes, the process to what we want means having a situation that makes you see all the ways that you're perpetuating the old pattern. Nothing wrong with that. That's the mess, okay? But we sit down, we take responsibility, and eventually we're going to get to where we want. It doesn't matter how long. The fun of existence is the process to what we want. The reason that business owners are stressed is that they think that when we achieve the result, they're going to feel differently. But that's not true. A lot of people get to big money and they realize they're the same person. It's because they didn't do the inner work at the same time. So for me, there's so much time to create what I want, but I'm intentional with that time. I'm not going to spend it on things that are the opposite of what I want.
Yes.
Do you see?
I love that. I think that makes perfect sense. And I wrote down and I underlined a couple of times the process is messy. And I wanted to highlight that for everybody listening, because especially in entrepreneurship, we have this expectation of perfection. In the age of social media, when everybody is sharing their highlight reel and you don't get to see the messy stuff. Like, look, I can't tell you how many times with my obsession with sharing the messy middle, right? And the mistakes and the missteps and the mental health challenges and things like that. I've been told by mentors in the past, don't do that. It shakes people's faith in you. Don't do that. Like, here are all these reasons why you shouldn't be talking about this stuff. And to a certain extent, right, there are things like if I haven't processed something, if I'm still in the middle of something, now is not the time to talk about it and invite the outside world into that. I've still got to sit with it, let it pass, learn what I can before I'm ready to share with it. And so in that sense, I don't share from the open wound when I'm still bleeding, right? Let's stop the bleeding. And then I can talk about this and share that scar with people and be like, okay, here's what I learned. But I also learned that so much suffering happens, like you talked about at the beginning with your family, when we protect other people from what we're going through, whether it's altruistic, like I don't want to set you up to think that this is super hard and like you have to struggle. I get that. And also, like, my struggle is mine. It may not be yours, but we're all struggling to a certain extent. And it doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you a failure. And I also loved, this ties to what you said about the pity party. Like, so that relationship didn't go the way I wanted to. I had a pity party for as long as I needed to. And I rail about this all the time. Feel the feelings. Stop pretending like you can shove it down like a beach ball and just hold it beneath the surface. That thing is going to pop up and smack you in the face when you don't need it to, right? If you don't just deal with it and allow it to pass. Feelings aren't facts. They don't have to control your life. You don't have to act from that place of feelings, but you do have to allow these things to pass and to teach you whatever they're trying to surface, to show you about your life that you need to pay attention to so that you're not just following the motions. And when I say following the motions, I've been there. Hannah's been there. We talked about this. Like, we have all, I think, fallen into that trap where these are the steps. I followed the steps. Where is my happiness? I put the coins in the machine. Give me my happiness. And it doesn't work that way.
I wish it did, though.
Yes, it would be so much easier.
I'm like, why don't we get 5 steps to whatever we want? But I think you're really speaking to something really important. And I'm going to say this in a way that hopefully is received. But I think the way that the online industry has gone is that it's been a breeding ground for entitlement, because a lot of people post just wins and they don't post what it's taken to get to those wins. And by that, I mean the grit, the strength, the dealing with the haters, the dealing with the dips, the dealing with things that work well, the dealing with my family. I'm suddenly making all this money and my family don't feel cool about it. Like all of the things that happen behind the scenes. And so people buy these courses, right? And you know, and then they feel that they're entitled to these big cash results, right? And it doesn't work that way, and it's not helpful. And so, you know, it's the distinction between prince and king and princess and queen. And so entrepreneurialism gets to become a process of our adult maturation, right? And I've gone through it, you know, I'm like, I bought the program and I did the launch and I didn't make $7,500 million. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, I thought that's what I, yeah, exactly. And then I realized, wait a minute, you know, the responsibility is in me, and, you know, every single path. Do you know what makes a really good entrepreneur? An entrepreneur that is really, really good is someone that doesn't copy, is someone that's innovative, right? And innovative moves take bravery and gumption and grit and time, right? And so I think that it's not about, you know, like you said, it's not always appropriate to share from an open wound, because if you're wobbly and then someone says something, you're going to wobble even more, and that doesn't serve them and it doesn't serve you, right? So we don't need to go around and not protect ourselves. I used to share a lot more about my personal life than I do now, because then I learned that I'm manipulatable. And, you know, I had hate page. I've had all sorts in the online world, and it was used against not good ways. So that was a toughening up lesson. So it's all duality, right? It's like, how can I be honest and authentic, but how can I protect myself? Because you're allowed, right? You're allowed.
Absolutely, you're allowed.
because that's a trauma response. So I've got to give everything to everyone. No, you don't. Have a
Mm-mm.
boundary. Not everyone's allowed in. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table, right? You know, and so and also, you know, sharing the truth of, and I think I fell into this at the beginning of my journey because, you know, I teach manifestation, and it was very easy for me. My first 6 figures, really easy. My first 6 figures in savings, really easy. First $250,000 launch, really easy. Right. I didn't really start to get hard until we got till about 7 figures ish total cash collected, not in a year. And so it meant that I had a bit of a wonky perception of what business building can look for people, right? Because my genuine experience. But here's the thing, the context of my life was sitting next to the bedside of a dying parent for 3 to 7 years. And so I realized my grit, my ability to just go, right, and stop and cry and process wasn't the normal. My resilience wasn't normal. When we got to 7 figures, we were hit with way more challenges than I'd experienced in business before that did throw me. And it was good because I started speaking about business in a different way, you know, and I started sharing more of that. And I think that a lot of people similar to me that had easy start journeys are now sharing the other bits. And the truth is, the online business is that we're all learning and doing this together, and we're all humans. And this has never been built before. There's so much finger pointing in this space, but it's like, you made a mistake? Cool. So have I. Right? Let's tell the truth about it and let's learn and grow together and improve this for everyone. It's a bit
Yeah.
of a random spiel, but that's what I'm going to say.
I freaking love it. Well, and I think everybody that listens to the show is used to the meandering. We follow all of the shiny threads on Permission to Kick Ass because, I mean, I tell people it evolved into this. I tell folks it's like my conversation at a bar. Like, I heard you speak on stage. Please tell me all about your business. Whatever comes up is going to come up. That's how I run this show. And I like that. Like, one thing that came up when you were talking about all this is like this illusion of crossing the finish line into happy, as I call it. Like, if I just grind away, eventually I'm going to hit that goal, whether that's, my first $1 million, or I've bought a company and now I've got people that can make that run for me while I make a living and I've got more ease, right? And we think once we hit that goal, I will have everything figured out. That's the coin into the machine that's going to give us happiness, right? And I just go, that's the next step, because you're going to cross that finish line and you're going to go, where is my happiness? And you're going to go, oh, shit. Well, I've done everything I thought I was supposed to do. Here we are repeating this cycle yet again. Everything I was supposed to do that was supposed to give me happiness did not give me happiness. And to that, I say, forgive yourself. Have yourself a little bit of a celebration. Have yourself a little bit of a pity party, whatever you need to do to process, and then get to work on the next goal. And maybe add in like a little bit of layering, a little bit of practice, right? How can I be happy while I'm doing this? What can I do to bring myself some joy, some satisfaction during the process of this?
I love that. And it's so true. You know, I went to an invite only event retreat last year, and it was very big people. Everyone was either famous or a Silicon Valley billionaire. Do you know what I mean? Or, you know, maybe millionaire, and or big influencer or something like this. And there was this man who had built, I'm not going to give a name, but $3 billion companies in his career. Okay. And he gets on stage and he's asked about this, you know, on paper, extraordinary career. On paper, it's an extraordinary career, right? And it was really shocking to me. This man had just come out of a breathwork class. And it's like, you know, when people just find spirituality, he was barefoot and wanted to cross his legs. And I'm like, okay, we're on an overcorrect, but like, we love you. We've all done the overcorrect.
Yes.
You know, I've lived in India barefoot teaching yoga. So I am no one to judge. I have overcorrect. I also like myself a bit of an extreme, you know, as I learn.
You're trying on identities.
Exactly. So I'm like, you're wiggling around, seeing what works. Anyway, so barefoot, cross legs. And he was, you know, asked about these $3 billion companies, and he was sat next to this guy who became, you know, he built his first $1 billion company, I think, by the age of 20 something, insane, right? And so they were talking about hitting some of the biggest, you know, success highs that, you know, were really heard of in our world. And someone, you know, said, what do you want people to know? And the older man gets up and he says, don't do it. I promise you I'm going somewhere with this question. He goes, don't. I know, wow, right? I was amazed. He said, don't do it. It's not worth it. My marriage is an invite only retreat. Okay. So it's a very selective group of people. And there's obviously a level of honesty that you wouldn't have in other places. And both of them agreed with that. And, and it was very interesting to me, and I teach this, what's the distinction between creation through force and creation through alignment? And when you create through force, which is I will be happy when, and I will do whatever I need to do, and I will push myself to any extreme that I need to go, well, then when you get to the end of the goal, you're empty. Right. And this is what these men were experiencing. And now they were going on their spiritual path. And it was really beautiful to see. But this layering goal with happiness, for me, what that looks like is when business becomes your spiritual journey. So for me, I'm fulfilled when I'm connected to my soul, right? I'm fulfilled when I have time for myself. I'm fulfilled when, when I'm in a relationship. We've been together for just under 4 years, and the relationship is better now. We're more in a honeymoon than we were at the beginning, but it's because we prioritize it. 7:30 p.m. we walk the dogs, right? We have Hannah and Craigie weekends. He does not call them that. He's ex-military. I call him that. He does not call himself Craigie. To be very clear. And so it's the thing that I think people are realizing. It's not about the goal. It's about what does the journey to the goal look like. And it's not about not pushing yourself, and it's not about not having grit and determination, because you need that too. But it's again that duality. Can you hold the grit? Can you hold the determination? Can you push through your limits? Right. And can you soften? Can you have fun? Can you, go to a nudist beach for lols once? Can you run around your garden naked? Can you give your dog 7 kisses in the morning before you make your coffee and go straight to your meetings? Because at the end, those tiny things are what make up your life. Final thing on this. My father is a Norwegian crime fiction translator. I always tell this story because it's funny. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Job up, okay? To be clear, it doesn't exist. He decided what he wanted to do at 50 years old. I was 5 years old. He had me late. He had my sister. My sister was 3. I'm the eldest. And so the context of my life for my slightly hippie parents was that it's never too late. Do what you want, break all the rules. Right. That was really my upbringing. So the fact that I was such a goody two shoes was very surprising to everyone. You know what I mean? That's like straight from me. And I saw him build his career in Norwegian crime fiction translation. He's now 76 and he's still working because he loves it. And he hit success, very different to the digital age. Back then, people would say it's 5 years in business to make a living. That's kind of the standard, right? Now we expect ourselves to be millionaires in a week, right? But so it's 5 years. And then, so by the time he was 60, mid 60s, he was peak of his career. And by the time I started building my business, he was early 70s. And I'd call him up, Dad, and I'd say, Dad, I'm so stressed. My first year in business, I flunked. Do you know what I mean? I'd made less than 10 grand, not enough to live, had to borrow money, like really normal. So cool. Yeah. Doesn't mean anything about you, your first year in business. Doesn't mean anything about you, how long it takes to make it. I remember calling him up and saying, Dad, like I'm stressed. Maybe I never said maybe I've made a mistake because I've never thought that. But, just really like, this is harder than I thought it would be. And he said to me, Hanny, one day you're going to have made it like he did. And he says, you're going to miss the journey. And that really stayed with me. Figuring out how can I meet the right person to, create this book, the right the right author, the thinking about the words. And so I think it's really important to remember that when you speak to those that are in a different age bracket and they have made it, right? They're reminiscing about the very moment that you're living right now. These are the good old days. You're living your good old days. So can we remember that whilst we're living them?
Oh my gosh. The thought that came up while you were saying that was like living in suspense, or maybe suspension, where it's like, I can't really live. I can't really enjoy myself until I've crossed that finish line, until I've hit that goal. And it's not like you can actually press pause on your life that way. Like a video game character, I could just pause this until I go buy like re-up at the store, get my coins so that I can buy an extra life and skip ahead to the next level. That's not the way it works. And, I started working on mindset a while back too. And I would say that I grew up kind of a negative person. And if you're a fan of Mindset by Carol Dweck, definitely grew up in a fixed mindset kind of thing and have been working on opening myself up. But the thing I've come to understand, especially as a storyteller, is that all of the shit that happens is so the shift can happen. And the shitty days make the best stories, y'all. Like, nobody is going to pay attention to me if I'm holding court at a conference and I'm like, so I woke up and it was just a glorious day outside and I got coffee and it was like the perfect temperature. And then like the outfit just made me feel like a goddess. Nobody fucking cares. Nobody cares. They care about like, oh my God, I woke up and I had a planes, trains, and automobiles experience. And I didn't have to learn anything or teach anything from that story. It was just entertaining for the folks around me. And I got to relive that through a lens of humor instead of a lens of trauma. So I don't know where I was going with that, but that's what came up.
Yeah, but I'm going to follow it. Have you heard of Kabbalah?
I have not.
Okay, so Kabbalah it's a set of teachings. So I consider myself a polymath. What that means is that I do many things, I master all of them, and I bring them together. It's a really old school word that pretty much only 70 to 80-year-olds know, and me, okay? Which tells you what my
old soul
inner consciousness is like. Yeah, old soul. And also, I'm like, sign me up for the 70-year-old lifestyle, cups of teas in bed, talk about, like, do you know what I'm like? Yes. Anyway, so Kabbalah is a set of teachings, which I'm really appreciating at the moment. And Kabbalah talks about, the laws of the universe, basically, because the laws exist. We just weren't taught them at school. We were taught algebra, which I loved. Most people didn't, but I loved algebra. Nothing against it. You didn't love algebra, or you did?
No, I'm so not a mathy person. I'm a true creative.
Oh, yeah, okay. I make creativity into maths because I'm that cool. I'm very mathy. But anyway, so Kabbalah shares this piece of wisdom, and I think it's really helpful to what you've said. He says, if you wake up one day and it's just this great, glorious day, it's been a good day, right? But if you wake up one day and everything goes wrong, you've got an opportunity to turn your negativity into light. The whole process of enlightenment is turning our negativity into light. If you can't see it, you can't change it. And so it says, if you wake up and, you've not signed any clients and you're getting anxious, right? The creator, that's the linguistics that they use. You replace it with a different word if you don't resonate, is giving you an opportunity to transform that anxiety into certainty, right? And so the mantra in the Kabbalah that they use, which I love, is I trust and I am certain that everything in my life is for good or showing me what I need to change. And I love that because we talked about entitlement. Entitlement is I want this to be a different way and it's not, and I'm sad about it, right? What Kabbalah teaches is all is good because either it's a pleasant experience, right? Or it's showing you so you can do something about it. And then that will take you to more pleasant experiences. The Kabbalah says that you can have it all, right? But that's a byproduct of earning your spiritual miles. You earn your spiritual miles by turning your negativity into light. So go back to that relationship I mentioned. I'm going to have a great relationship. Fall straight into an abusive one. But I got to see all of my trauma and I turned it into light, right? And then I was blessed with this awesome, I'm bumping myself on my microphone because I got excited. This awesome partner, right? Who's just incredible. And we had this beautiful life together, but it's because I cleaned my stuff up,
Oh, I love that. I had a similar experience, and I'm glad that you're saying that because I feel like that was something that was hidden in business for a long time too, abusive relationships and the prevalence of them, especially around, you're a smart woman, I'm a smart woman. A lot of smart folks tend to have this unconscious belief in there of like, I'm too smart. This can't happen to me. Like I recognize the traps. But guys, then chemicals come in and emotions come in and you start rationalizing stuff and abusers and manipulators are really good at holding back the full on crazy until you're super invested. So like it's easier to get into these things than you think they are. And like you, I had a similar experience where I was in an abusive relationship for a while. It was ironically my business buddies that helped me realize this is not normal and this is not okay. And when I was doing all of the work after the fact to ask myself, how did I get here? What signs did I ignore? What was I telling myself? Why did I make the decisions I made? I came to the conclusion that like I had done part of the work, right? I'd made myself a checklist of what my ideal partner would have. But I didn't think about who he was as a person. I didn't think about what I needed from the relationship to feel like whole and loved and appreciated. I was just like, I was looking at him and I was like, but he checks everything off on the checklist. I don't understand why I'm unhappy. And now I can see it for what it is. Put the coin in the machine. Give me my happiness, please. I found the guy, the checklist guy. Here he is. Why am I not happy?
Completely this. And it's like when you look at patterns of abuse, since we're going here, abusers abuse people that have weaknesses, right? And so it's very helpful in business and in love to identify this because it's happened to me in business and it's happened to me in love. In the romantic relationship, the reason that I let someone in, and it's very normal when someone has a type of personality that manipulates, they love bomb at the beginning, don't they? So you think, oh, this is amazing, right? But someone that's got a secure relational attachment is suspicious of love bombing and they don't need love bombing. But I was very insecure. I didn't believe that anyone could love me, right? So because I didn't believe that anyone could love me and I didn't believe that I was worthy of love, when someone came and they wanted to have a relationship with me, I overlooked things and I tolerated things that other people would not do, right? And so then I suddenly ended up in this relationship, and the healing work for me was actually learning to love myself. And I don't mean, bubble baths and baths. It's by that, I mean being cool with who I am, all of who I am, not, having to be a certain version to be lovable, but liking me for the messy, for the nice, the good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly, the glamorous, the ferret look, all of it. And so my partner says this, he's like, everyone thinks you look a certain way on Instagram, but he's like, I know that really you're a ferret. And he literally got me a t-shirt printed saying, I am ferret. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like, and that's the kind of love that I want. I don't want to have to be glamorous in my house. I want to wear like knickers and have no makeup on and a little bun here and to be singing to a song without knowing the words terribly with tone deaf. Like that's how I want to live,
Yeah.
And in business, right, it's the same. When I got a hate page and there was a lady that wanted a refund, and she wanted a refund for, she was 8 months into a contract, and everyone may feel different refund policies, but it was the first time I'd had to hold someone and say no. And as a primary caregiver, I've never had to say no. I've always said, what do you need? Let me love you. Let me give you all of myself. And so it was very uncomfortable for me to say no to someone asking for a refund 8 months into a product. Right? And this person reacted in the worst way possible to no. The worst way. As in, this person obviously had a pattern of if I attack, I get what I want. But I took the attack very personally. And if I hadn't been doing the work, I would have given that person a refund, and that would have been manipulation, and that would have been abuse in many ways, because she had discovered, if I attack Hannah, then I get what I want. And so that would have been a weakness. And so a lot of business building and scaling that people don't realize is finding weaknesses in our system and cleaning up, finding places that people can hook into to manipulate our behavior. Right. And I say this to my clients, what's the thing that I'd have to say to you? What would I have to call you? And that would let me in and you'd be able to manipulate me. If I called you unethical, would that create so much emotional intensity that you'd let me do whatever I want? If I called you, do you know what I mean? And so this is a part of business that people don't talk about. And so last year I lived my worst case scenario in business. All sorts of things were said about me that weren't true. Right. But let me tell you what, this year, I feel like I'm a unicorn. I'm like, there is like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, I went through, oh, how can you say that to me? You know, my income plummeted. I stopped selling. It was really after this big high, this big kind of roller coaster, which I'd never been on in my business because I was so shaken. But like this year, I'm like, I am solid. And if you want to create big impact and you're going to have lots of eyes on you, people are going to talk, baby. You need to know you. You need to be solid in you, right? And so it's kind of a process of initiation a lot of business owners go into. I mean, I love business because how much of this work is so cool would we never do if we weren't put into this context?
Right. And stepping up when there is no path, right? There is no happiness machine, and having to figure that out when so many will settle for the prescription and just repeat that pattern over and over and over again. Well, I didn't get happiness this time, but maybe this one over here, but maybe that one over here. And they don't learn to enjoy the process and address the issues that are causing some of the struggles that they run into, right? And I loved that you pointed out the manipulation, because I don't think we've ever even talked about that on this show. But like, yeah, there are people out there. There are I don't want to call them bad actors, because I don't think a lot of the people who do bad in the world are necessarily bad people. A lot of folks they're suffering under their trauma, and they see enemies everywhere, including us sometimes. We have the best of intentions. But somebody said something, I can't remember where it comes from. True freedom is allowing people to misunderstand you. Like, they don't have to get it. They don't have to see me for who I am, for who I know myself to be. I am completely solid in it. I didn't have an experience like yours where people went after me, but I did have a story that went viral a while back. And it was interesting because I knew the haters would come in the comments and let me know what they thought about my life, right? And I shared a messy breakup story and what I learned from the travel and the aftermath. I was so scared to put that story out there because I knew that the haters would come. But I felt a strange sense of calm when they did, because I just went, oh, well, that assumption is totally wrong. Oh, well, that is not accurate at all. And I started to realize, like, all of these people are projecting all of this shit onto me. I even had one argue. I was active in the comments because I'm a marketer. I was like, let's up the engagement so the algorithm puts this out to even more people, right? But I had somebody arguing over the situation that we were in. And I was like, you're fine to think whatever you want. I was there and I know what happens. Like, you don't get to rewrite the story for me. I'm sorry, that's not the way this works. And it was such a sense of peace to be like, you can misinterpret me all you want. I don't care. If you're willfully misinterpreting me at this point, when I'm giving my side of the story and I'm trying to explain it to you, that's a choice. And then I go, I really don't care what you think right now.
I adore this. I absolutely adore this. And, you know, it's been a big liberator for me as well, to realize I can't control other people. I can be as good, I can perform as well, you know, and this is the good girl in me, but I can't control other people's opinions. I can't control their reactions to me. I can't control their experience of me. So I'm just going to create a really good life for me and know that I'm in integrity with me. And that's enough.
That is absolutely enough. And the funny thing is, like, we operate under these delusions of control all the time. I see it happen all the time in relationships, business relationships, personal relationships, and otherwise. I need this person to start doing this, and then I will do that. And that is how we're going to fix this thing. If I can tell this other person what to do, and then I can work on myself. Do you know the opposite is true? Like, almost 100% of the time. If I know that something is broken in this relationship and I start working on myself, it's either going to make the clash between us so glaringly obvious that something has to give and we have to have that hard conversation, or the other person is going to notice something has changed and been like, that magnetism kicks in, right? People are drawn to you. What are you doing that's different? Oh, I could do that too. I could go to the gym with you too. You look like you're having fun. Maybe we should do that together. So instead of me like trying to pressure this person into doing what I think they should do, I just focus on me and work on me and trust that they're going to come along if they see this as part of their journey, right? Work on ourselves first.
100%, and trust other people, trust that people are adults and they can make choices for themselves.
Yes.
And that's a thing. And then also, because I completely agree with what you say, something that I've realized in my romantic relationship is that I used to think my partner should be more like me. Do you know what I mean? We do this. Oh, they should be like me. And our relationship really started to bloom. And it's always been a beautiful relationship. We've had challenges and moments, but it's been a beautiful relationship. But when I went, oh my God, I get to love and appreciate him for who he is in all of his distinct and separateness to me and difference, that he became even bigger and more beautiful in that, you know? And it's a really interesting thing to watch. It's like the rice experiment, 2 jars of rice. One jar you're saying loving words to, one jar you're saying horrible words to. The jar of the rice, the horrible words, moldy, gross, 7 days later. The other jar. Have you seen this experiment?
I
They do it with
haven't.
plants as well. So get 2 plants, like everyone can do this at home. I feel like it's Blue Peter-esque. You might not get the Blue Peter reference in America. Does that make sense? Blue Peter? No. Okay. Just going to pass over that. Clearly British. And to one plant every morning, you say loving words, and to the plant, you don't. Watch how the plant that you don't say loving words to, that you say, oh, you're a horrible plant, you're so ugly, you don't know how to grow, shrivels. Whereas the plant that you're like, oh, you're so beautiful, you're growing slowly, but I adore the precision in your, like, that plant blooms. And we are the same as that. And so the people around us, especially our romantic relationships and our intimate relationships, it's like, can we love them for who they are instead of who we think they should be? That was a revelation for me.
Yep. For who they are instead of their potential is another way to say that. Who we think they should be, who we think they can be. Yes. Oh my gosh. I want to keep talking for like 2 more hours, but I glanced down and realized that so I'm going to say we're going to have a part 2 and wrap on this somehow, somewhere. In the meantime, tell us a little bit more where we can learn about you and your fabulous multiple businesses.
Yeah. So my name is Hannah, but it is spelt with a J. So I'm just saying this so you don't get confused on your way to finding me. I'm Spanish English. My name doesn't exist in England and Spain. My parents thought, oh, let's make her life interesting. So my name is spelled, even though it is Hannah, Jana. Yes, I am sure. No, I haven't got that wrong. That's what I always get asked. So it's Jana Bartlett Alonso. Really great place to find me is Instagram. I do lives there teaching, and I just love it when people come into my messages and just say, Han, I listened to the podcast and, this is what I took away. And if you message me on Instagram, just one word, podcast, I will send you a free business course, okay, which is really, really fun. And I will give you the business course link. It's called Multidimensional Business. It's my approach to apply the healing work to business so you guys can sample a bit. And if you're one of those people, and I'm one of these people, and you're like, I don't need to do a free course, Han. You don't need to take me through this process. I just know that I want to work with you and I want to know how to work with you. I always say this to people: ask for what you want, direct communication, get in my DMs. This is my goal. This is who I am. This is what I want. I will either send you to the correct product that would be a match to that, or I will send you to someone else. I will always sell you something that is a match to you. So just be clear in what you want and your need, and I will respond to that in my Instagram. Best place to find me.
Fantastic. I will make sure there are clickable links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being such an amazing guest and for sharing so much of you, yourself, your personal journey. Like, it matters. It matters. And I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. This has been a fun podcast. I really hope everyone enjoys. I'm sure they will.
That's all for now. If you want to keep that kick-ass energy high, please take a minute to share this episode with someone that might need a high-octane dose of "you can do it." Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Permission to Kick-Ass podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you stream your podcasts. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and I'm here rooting for you. Thanks for listening, and let's go kick some ass.